My son left me stranded at Dublin airport with $47 in my wallet and a blocked phone number where his contact used to be. I spent 4 days eating from trash cans and sleeping on cold terminal floors while strangers recorded videos of the homeless American for TikTok. Today, I'm sitting in my living room, the same house Nathan thought he'd stolen from me, holding an eviction notice with his name on it. I'm Eddie Collins, 63 years old, retired aircraft mechanic, and apparently the world's most naive father. 3 weeks ago, I handed my son a cashier's check for $125,000, every penny I had in the world. He said it was for his future. Turns out, I was buying my own destruction. Nathan made one tiny mistake when he planned his perfect con. He forgot that his old man knows how to read legal documents. He forgot that every gift needs paperwork. And he forgot that the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting legal. 4 days ago, I was begging Irish strangers for spare change. Today, Nathan's sleeping in a studio apartment because the house he thought he owned? Still mine. The money he thought he'd stolen? Still owed to me. The father he thought he'd destroyed? Still here. Still fighting. Still collecting 25% of his wages for the next 15 years. Let me know where you're listening from, and if family has ever taken advantage of your trust. Because this story's got more twists than my son's got excuses. And you're going to want to subscribe for what happened when he walked through that door, expecting to find his house empty. But before I tell you how I turned the tables, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family justice. 4 decades working on aircraft engines at United Airlines. My fingers know every bolt, every wire, every piece of metal that keeps planes in the sky. They're stained permanent black under the nails. They shake a little now when I'm tired, but they never shook when I held my son. Nathan came into this world screaming bloody murder, and I promised my wife Susan right there in that hospital room that I'd give him everything. Everything I had. Everything I could build. Everything I could sacrifice. Susan died when Nathan was 12. Cancer took her fast and mean. I held her hand while she made me promise again. Take care of our boy, Eddie. Give him the life we dreamed about. I kept that promise for 17 years. I worked double shifts. I saved every penny I could scrape together. I bought Nathan his first car, paid for his college, helped him get started in his IT career. When he wanted to buy a house but couldn't qualify for the mortgage, I didn't even hesitate. I promised I'd give him everything. That promise nearly killed me, and it definitely killed the man I used to be. Nathan made good money as an IT specialist. $65,000 a year, which seemed like a fortune to a guy who spent his life getting grease under his fingernails. But in today's housing market, $65,000 doesn't buy you much. Nathan and his girlfriend Samantha had been looking at houses for 2 years. Every weekend, they'd call me with stories about losing bidding wars, about cash offers they couldn't compete with, about feeling hopeless. "Dad," Nathan would say, his voice heavy with disappointment, "we found the perfect house, but they want $200,000 down. We'll never save that much." I owned my house in Cleveland outright. My parents left it to me when they passed, and I'd been living there for 30 years. It wasn't much to look at, but it was mine, paid for, free and clear. That house was my only real asset. But what good is a house when your son needs a future? I called Nathan on a Tuesday morning in March. "Son, I'm selling the house. I want to give you the money for your down payment." The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Dad, are you sure? That's your home. That's everything you have." I should have listened to that little voice in my head that whispered, "Why does he sound so excited instead of worried?" Instead, I ignored the warning signs and plowed ahead with my plan. The house sold for $147,000. After real estate fees and closing costs, I walked away with $125,000 in cash. Every penny I had in the world, sitting in a cashier's check that felt heavier than any engine part I'd ever lifted. Nathan and Samantha picked me up from the bank. They were practically bouncing in their seats, talking about granite countertops and master bedrooms and 2-car garages. Nathan kept glancing at the check in my hands like it was made of gold. "You sure about this, Dad?" he asked for the 3rd time, but his eyes were already calculating square footage. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I told him. That was the truth. I felt lighter than I had in years. Finally, I was fulfilling that promise to Susan. Finally, I was giving our son the foundation he needed to build his own life. Nathan hugged me right there in the bank parking lot. "I love you, Dad. I'll never forget this." He was right about that last part. He'd never forget it. Neither would I. I should have listened to that little voice in my head. Before I handed over that money, my old friend Tom Morrison pulled me aside. Tom's been practicing law for 35 years, and we've known each other since high school. He's the one who handled my parents' wills, my divorce paperwork, everything legal in my life. "Eddie," Tom said, adjusting his glasses the way he does when he's about to give serious advice, "I need to talk to you about protecting yourself legally." "It's my son, Tom. Family doesn't need protection. Family especially needs protection." Tom pulled out a standard loan agreement form. "Look, you're giving Nathan a life-changing amount of money. What happens if something goes wrong? What if he can't pay you back? What if his relationship falls apart? What if he just changes his mind about taking care of his old man?" I laughed. Not Nathan, never Nathan. But Tom insisted, and I've learned to listen when lawyers insist. "Just some paperwork to protect us both," Tom explained as he typed up the documents. "Technically, this isn't a gift. It's a family loan at 0% interest. Nathan signs acknowledging the debt, and if he ever wants to make it a gift officially, we can void the agreement later." Nathan barely looked at the papers when we met at Tom's office. "It's just formality, Dad," Nathan said, scribbling his signature across 3 different pages. "Legal stuff to make the bank happy." Tom said something that stuck with me as we left his office. "Eddie, the most important documents are the ones you hope you'll never need. Just some paperwork. Those papers would save my life." With the money transferred, we had to figure out what came next. I couldn't stay in my old house because the new owners were moving in at the end of the month. Nathan and Samantha's apartment was too small for 3 people, and honestly, I didn't want to cramp their style as newlyweds. That's when Nathan suggested something that seemed perfect. "Dad, why don't you stay in our new house while we figure out the paperwork? There's plenty of room, and Samantha and I can stay at the apartment for a few more weeks while we transition everything." It made sense. The new house was huge compared to what I was used to. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, enough space for all of us to spread out. Nathan insisted I take the master bedroom. "Consider it a preview of retirement living," he laughed. What I didn't realize at the time was how carefully Nathan had structured everything. The deed transfer paperwork was still being processed by the title company. The mortgage was in Nathan's name, but I was listed as temporary resident while the legal details got sorted out. "Just easier this way, Dad. You know how slow these government offices are." I kept all the important documents in a file folder by my bed. The original deed to my old house, the loan agreement with Nathan's signature, the bank transfer receipts, everything. Tom had insisted I keep copies of everything. "Possession isn't ownership, Eddie," Tom reminded me when he dropped off the final paperwork. "The law protects people who document everything properly." I thought he was being overly cautious. The house felt like home immediately. Nathan visited every few days, always cheerful, always asking if I needed anything. I should have wondered why he seemed so eager to make sure I was comfortable. 3 weeks after we finalized everything, Nathan called with an idea that made my heart sing. "Dad, I've been thinking. We should celebrate this new chapter in our family. How about a trip to Ireland? Just you and me. A real father-son adventure." Ireland. I'd dreamed about visiting Ireland my whole life. My great-grandfather emigrated from County Cork in 1892, and I'd always wanted to see where our family came from. But on a mechanic's salary, international travel was never in the budget. "Nathan, that's expensive. You just bought a house." "Dad, you just gave me the down payment for my dream house. The least I can do is show you the old country. Consider it my treat." The way Nathan's eyes lit up when he talked about the trip reminded me of when he was 8 years old, planning elaborate birthday parties that would never happen. This felt different, though. This felt real. We booked everything through Nathan's travel agent. 2 weeks in Dublin, with day trips to the countryside. Nathan insisted on handling all the arrangements. "I want this to be perfect, Dad. No stress, no worrying about details. Just father-son bonding time." I packed light, just one suitcase with enough clothes for the trip. Nathan, on the other hand, packed like he was moving to Ireland permanently. 3 large suitcases, 2 carry-on bags, even shipping boxes sent ahead to the hotel. Better to have too much than too little, he explained when I asked about all the luggage. The night before we left, I lay awake in that big house, staring at the ceiling and feeling grateful for the son I'd raised. I was so happy to see him excited about spending time with his old man. That happiness wouldn't last long. The first sign something was wrong came before we even left the ground. I handed Nathan my boarding pass at the check-in counter, and his face went strange. Not confused strange, guilty strange. "Oh, Dad, there's been a mix-up with the seating." "What kind of mix-up?" Nathan wouldn't meet my eyes. "Well, I got upgraded to first class through my credit card rewards program, but it was only for 1 passenger. You understand, right?" I looked at my boarding pass. Seat 34B, economy, middle seat. Nathan was holding a first-class boarding pass. "Son, I can pay the upgrade fee. How much is it?" No, Dad. Don't worry about it. It's just a few hours. You'll be fine back there." Something cold crept into his voice when he said back there, like I was cargo instead of his father. On the plane, I watched Nathan disappear behind the first-class curtain while I squeezed into a middle seat between a crying baby and a man who smelled like he hadn't showered in a week. The flight attendant offered me a meal for $22. I asked Nathan about it when we landed in Dublin. "Oh, they fed us really well up front," he said, patting his stomach. "Didn't think to save you anything, though." That night at the hotel, I discovered Nathan had booked separate rooms without telling me. When I couldn't find my room key, the desk clerk explained that Mr. Collins had only paid for 1 room. "You can afford your own room now, can't you, Dad?" Nathan asked when I confronted him. "After all, you're retired. You should have plenty saved up." I paid for my own room with my credit card, the last credit card I had. The next day brought more of the same coldness, but worse. We were supposed to tour the Guinness storehouse together, something I'd been looking forward to since we planned the trip. Nathan disappeared for 2 hours, leaving me waiting in the lobby. When he finally showed up, he was carrying shopping bags and smelled like beer. "Where were you? We had tickets for the tour." "Oh, I ran into some people from the flight. They invited me out for drinks. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway, Dad." Lots of young people, lots of energy. That afternoon, Nathan suggested we grab lunch at a nice restaurant. When the check came, he excused himself to use the bathroom. He never came back to the table. I sat there for 20 minutes, watching other diners stare at me with pity, before I realized what had happened. The waitress approached carefully, like I might bolt. "Sir, your son asked me to give you this." A napkin with Nathan's handwriting. "Had to run. Emergency work call. You understand?" I paid the €60 bill with my credit card and felt my chest tighten. That night I heard Nathan on the phone through the thin hotel walls. He was laughing, talking loud enough that I couldn't ignore the words. "The old man bought everything. He has no idea what's coming." I pressed my ear against the wall and heard something that made my blood turn to ice. Tomorrow's the last day I have to pretend to give a shit about him. That's when I started recording. I'd never used the voice recorder on my phone before, but desperation makes you learn new skills quickly. Nathan was still talking, his voice clear through the wall. "Samantha, baby, it worked perfectly. He gave me everything, the house, the money, all of it. And the best part? He thinks this trip is about bonding." My hands shook as I held the phone up to the wall. No, he can't touch any of it. It's all legally mine now. The money was a gift, and he's been living in my house for a month. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right?" A pause. Nathan was listening to Samantha. "Of course I'm leaving him here. That was always the plan. He'll figure out how to get home eventually. Or he won't. Either way, he's not my problem anymore." Another pause, then laughter that sounded nothing like the son I'd raised. "Are you kidding me? The old man worked 40 years as a grease monkey and never saved more than what he gave me. He's got maybe $50 in his wallet and 1 credit card that's almost maxed out. He'll be stuck here for days." I recorded 15 minutes of conversation. Nathan describing exactly how he'd planned to abandon me, how he'd already changed the locks on the house, how he'd been planning this inheritance grab for months. Some lesson about trust or whatever. Maybe it'll toughen him up. The recording ended when Nathan hung up the phone. And then came our last morning in Dublin. Nathan woke up cheerful the next morning, whistling in the shower, humming while he packed, talking about how much he'd enjoyed our bonding time. "This has been the best trip, Dad. Really brought us closer together." I played along, even though my stomach felt like it was full of broken glass. We checked out of the hotel and took a taxi to Dublin Airport. Nathan chatted with the driver about Irish history, about family heritage, about how meaningful this trip had been for both of us. "My dad here is finally getting to see where his great-grandfather came from. It's been emotional, hasn't it, Dad?" I nodded and smiled and felt like I was watching someone else's life. At the airport, Nathan insisted on handling the check-in process. "Let me take care of everything, Dad. You just relax." I watched him talk to the ticket agent, watched him slide both our passports across the counter, watched him nod and smile and gesture toward me like we were the closest father and son in the world. When he handed me my boarding pass, I noticed something wrong immediately. "Nathan, this says gate B7. Your boarding pass says gate A12. "Oh, that's weird. Must be a computer error. Don't worry about it, Dad. We'll figure it out at the gate." Nathan guided me toward security, chatting about the flight home, about how much he was looking forward to getting back to normal life. "Hey, Dad, why don't you hit the bathroom before we go through security? It's going to be a long flight." "Take your time, Dad, no rush." Famous last words. I was washing my hands in the airport bathroom when I heard the final boarding announcement for Flight EI 105 to Cleveland. My flight. Our flight. I ran out of the bathroom, still shaking water from my hands, and sprinted toward gate B7. The gate was empty. The jetway door was closed. Through the window, I could see the plane backing away from the terminal. "Sir, can I help you?" A gate agent looked at me with professional sympathy. "That's my flight. My son. We were supposed to be on that flight together." I showed her my boarding pass with shaking hands. "I'm sorry, sir. Final boarding was 10 minutes ago. The aircraft has already pushed back." "But my son. He has a ticket too. Nathan Collins. Is he on the plane?" She checked her computer, her expression growing more concerned. "Sir, I show a Nathan Collins checked in for flight EI 108 to Cleveland, departing from gate A12. That flight left 2 hours ago." The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 hours ago. Nathan had been gone for 2 hours. I fumbled for my phone and dialed Nathan's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. I tried texting. The messages wouldn't deliver. He'd blocked me. My own son had blocked me. I was trapped 3,000 miles from home with $47 in my wallet, a maxed-out credit card, and the sudden, crushing realization that everything Nathan had said was true. I was no longer his problem. The first night was the worst. Dublin Airport doesn't close, but they don't welcome people sleeping in the chairs either. Security guards moved me along every few hours. "You can't stay here, sir." Where exactly they expected me to go, they never said. I tried calling airlines about emergency flights. The cheapest ticket home was $800. I tried calling the American Embassy. They could help me contact family members, but they couldn't pay for my ticket. My family member had abandoned me. I ate dinner from a vending machine, stale sandwich and warm soda that cost me 12 euros. By the second day, I was eating crackers that other travelers had left behind. By the third day, I was asking strangers for spare change. "Please, I'm an American. My son left me here. I just need a few dollars for food." Some people helped. A British couple gave me 20 euros. An Irish businessman bought me a coffee and a sandwich. But most people just looked away, embarrassed by the old man begging in the international terminal. That's when someone started recording. I was sitting on the floor outside the McDonald's, counting the change in my palms, when I noticed a young woman holding up her phone. She was filming me, whispering to her camera about the homeless Americans she'd discovered. Within hours, I was viral. Old American man abandoned at Dublin Airport. 50,000 views, 100,000. Comments filled with sympathy and outrage and questions about how this could happen to someone. I watched the video of myself on a stranger's phone and felt something break inside my chest. That's when I stopped being a victim. On the fourth night, sitting on that cold airport floor, I remembered something important. I still had one phone call to make, not to Nathan, not to the embassy, to Tom Morrison. It was 3 a.m. Dublin time, which meant it was 10 at night back in Ohio. Tom answered on the second ring. "Eddie, Jesus Christ, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "Tom, I need you to listen very carefully." My voice was hoarse from 4 days of airport air and desperation. Nathan abandoned me. He took the money and left me stranded in Ireland. What? That's insane. That's elder abuse, Eddie. That's criminal. Tom, remember those papers Nathan signed? The loan agreement? A pause. I could practically hear Tom's legal mind spinning. Eddie, are you telling me Nathan actually stole from you? That this wasn't just family drama? I'm telling you I have recordings of him planning this whole thing. I'm telling you he confessed to taking my money and leaving me here to rot. Recordings? I played 30 seconds of Nathan's phone conversation through my phone speaker, right there in Dublin Airport at 3 a.m. Tom was quiet for a long time. Eddie, I need you to email me those recordings right now, all of them, and I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I'm listening. Nathan never officially owned that house. The deed transfer was never completed. And that loan agreement he signed? It's legally enforceable. He owes you $125,000. Tom, I think it's time to activate that paperwork. What happened next felt like watching a machine come to life. Tom worked through the night, coordinating with Dublin Legal Aid Services to get me emergency assistance. By morning, I had a temporary place to stay, a meal, and most importantly, a plan. Eddie, I've been on the phone with the county clerk's office for 2 hours, Tom told me during our second call. Nathan never filed the deed transfer paperwork. Legally, you still own that house. He's been living there as your tenant. My tenant? Your tenant who owes you $125,000 and just committed elder abuse by abandoning you in a foreign country. Tom's voice had that satisfied tone he gets when the law is about to work exactly as intended. I'm filing an emergency eviction notice this morning. I'm also filing suit for immediate repayment of the loan, plus interest and legal fees. Nathan has 48 hours to either pay the debt in full or vacate the premises. The paperwork was beautiful in its simplicity. Everything documented, everything legal, everything ironclad. Nathan's signature on the loan agreement, my ownership of the property, the audio recordings of his confession, the airline records showing he abandoned me. The law protects people who prepare properly, Tom reminded me, echoing something he'd said weeks earlier. Dublin Legal Aid helped me get emergency passage home. The Irish government, it turns out, takes a very dim view of family members who abandon elderly relatives in their country. By the time my plane lifted off from Dublin, Nathan's legal nightmare was already beginning. He just didn't know it yet. Beat 15, 292, 290 seconds words. Beat 16. The return, 293 words. I landed in Cleveland on a Thursday morning, feeling like a different person than the one who'd left 6 days earlier. Tom picked me up from the airport, and the first thing he did was hand me a manila envelope, copies of everything we filed yesterday. Nathan's been served with papers at his job, at the house, and through certified mail. He has until Friday at 5 p.m. to respond. The house looked exactly the same from the outside. My house. Still my house. Tom had arranged for the locks to be changed that morning, which was my legal right as the owner. I used my new key and stepped back into the home I'd been tricked into leaving. Nathan had moved in completely, his furniture in my living room, his dishes in my kitchen, his clothes in my bedroom closet. He'd even hung pictures of himself and Samantha where my family photos used to be. It felt like stepping into someone else's life. I made myself comfortable in Nathan's favorite chair, the big recliner he'd positioned in front of the television. I spread the legal documents across the coffee table like I was dealing cards. Eviction notice, loan repayment demand, elder abuse complaint, property ownership documents. Everything Nathan thought he'd stolen. Everything he thought he'd gotten away with, laid out in black and white legal language. I made myself a cup of coffee in my own kitchen and settled in to wait. Nathan would be home from his extended vacation with Samantha soon enough. And when he walked through that door, expecting to find his house empty and his old man still trapped in Ireland, he was going to get the surprise of his lifetime. I was finally living in my own home again. Nathan's key didn't work. I heard him trying the lock, jiggling the handle, trying again. Then I heard him talking to Samantha on the porch. That's weird. Something's wrong with the lock. More jiggling, then knocking. Hello? Is someone in there? I let him knock for a full minute before I opened the door. Nathan's face went through every emotion possible in the span of 3 seconds. Confusion, shock, fear, then anger. Dad? What? How are you here? You were in Ireland. You were... Stranded? I stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. Welcome home, son. We need to talk about your rent. Nathan and Samantha entered slowly, like they were walking into a trap, which I suppose they were. Dad, I can explain everything. There was a mix-up with the flights, and I thought you were right behind me, and when I realized what happened, I tried calling, but... Nathan, I kept my voice calm and level. Sit down. I gestured to the couch, my couch in my living room, in my house. Nathan sat. Samantha remained standing, her eyes darting around like she was looking for exits. I picked up the first document from the coffee table. This is an eviction notice. You have 48 hours to vacate these premises. Nathan's mouth fell open. What? Dad, what are you talking about? This is my house. You gave me the money. You signed everything over. I picked up the second document. This is a loan repayment demand. You owe me $125,000 plus interest and legal fees. Payment is due immediately. Dad, you're not making sense. That was a gift. That was... Then I played the recording. Nathan's own voice filled the room, crystal clear through my phone speaker. The old man bought everything. He has no idea what's coming. Nathan went pale. Tomorrow's the last day I have to pretend to give a shit about him. Samantha sank onto the couch next to Nathan, her hand covering her mouth. Of course I'm leaving him here. That was always the plan. I let the recording play for 2 full minutes. Nathan describing the con, laughing about my naivety, planning my abandonment in detail. When I finally stopped the playback, the silence in the room was deafening. Your own words convict you, son. Nathan tried to speak, but no sound came out. I picked up the loan agreement and held it in front of his face. Your signature. Your legal acknowledgement that you borrowed $125,000 from me. Tom Morrison witnessed it. It's notarized. It's legally binding. But that was just paperwork. You said it was just formality. I lied. I smiled for the first time since this whole nightmare began. Something I learned from my son. I picked up the property deed. This house was never transferred to you. The paperwork was never filed. You've been living here as my tenant for the past month, and now your lease is terminated. Nathan finally found his voice. Dad, please. I made a mistake. I can explain everything. Samantha and I were just scared about money, and we thought... You thought you could steal from your father and get away with it. I stood up and walked to the door. You have 48 hours. After that, the sheriff will remove you from my property. Nathan followed me to the door, desperation creeping into his voice. Dad, you can't do this. I'm your son. Family doesn't sue family. Mom would never want this. That stopped me cold. Don't you dare bring your mother into this. I turned around slowly. Susan made me promise to take care of you. She never told me to let you destroy me. Dad, I'll pay you back. I'll get a loan. I'll figure something out. Just give me time. How much time did you give me in Dublin? When I was sleeping on airport floors? When I was begging strangers for food? Samantha tugged on Nathan's sleeve. We should call our lawyer. Call whoever you want, I told them. This is a legal matter now. Your lawyer can talk to my lawyer. Nathan tried one last appeal. What about forgiveness? What about second chances? You raised me to be better than this. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and realized I was seeing a stranger. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd sacrificed everything for, was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. Some bridges burn completely, Nathan. Some lines can't be uncrossed. I opened the front door. The clock started ticking when you were served papers yesterday. You now have 36 hours. I watched my son and his girlfriend walk down the driveway, carrying nothing but the clothes on their backs. I wasn't losing a son. I was finding myself. Nathan tried everything over the next 36 hours. He hired a lawyer who lasted exactly 1 consultation before refusing the case. Audio evidence of planned elder abuse, apparently, makes for poor legal defense. He tried to claim the house had been given to him as a gift, but the deed told a different story. He tried to argue that the loan was invalid, but his signature said otherwise. He attempted to get a restraining order against me, claiming I was harassing him. The judge took one look at the evidence and dismissed it immediately. Mr. Collins, the judge said to Nathan during the emergency hearing, You abandoned your elderly father in a foreign country after taking his life savings. Be grateful he's seeking civil remedies instead of pressing criminal charges. Criminal charges? I hadn't even thought about that option. Nathan scrambled to find the money to pay me back, but where do you find $125,000 in 2 days when your credit is destroyed and your reputation is in tatters? He finally understood what legally binding means. On Friday afternoon, Tom called me with the news. Eddie, Nathan's lawyer just contacted me. They're not contesting the eviction or the loan repayment. Nathan will be out of the house by tonight. And the money? He can't pay it. We'll proceed with asset seizure and wage garnishment. The law had worked exactly as it was designed to. Justice, served cold and legally binding. What happened to Nathan next wasn't my doing, it was just gravity. When you build your life on lies and theft, eventually everything collapses under its own weight. Nathan lost his job 3 days after the court hearing. Turns out, IT companies don't appreciate employees who make national news for elder abuse. The viral TikTok video of me begging in Dublin had found its way to his employer's attention, along with the court records showing what he'd done. Samantha left him that same week. I thought I was marrying someone successful, she told the neighbors loud enough for the whole street to hear, not someone who steals from his own father. Their relationship had been built on the promise of Nathan's inheritance, on the financial security my money would provide. Without that foundation, there was nothing left but a man who'd revealed himself capable of breathtaking cruelty. Nathan ended up exactly where he'd planned for me to be. Homeless. Everything built on lies eventually falls apart. He moved into a studio apartment across town, the only place that would accept someone with ruined credit and no references. He took a job delivering pizzas at night, trying to rebuild his life from nothing. The same nothing he'd tried to leave me with. I heard about his struggles through mutual acquaintances, people who would call me with updates like they were reporting on a natural disaster. Did you hear Nathan's living in that terrible complex on Marginal Road? Someone saw him delivering food to his old office building? I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The internet, the same force that had humiliated me in Dublin, became my unlikely ally. The local news picked up the story first. Elderly father abandoned abroad gets justice through legal system. Then the national outlets caught wind of it. Son who left father stranded gets evicted from stolen house. The TikTok video that had shown my lowest moment was suddenly being shared with new context. People who had watched me beg for food now knew the full story, knew that the homeless American had actually been the victim of calculated family abuse. The comment section became my vindication. This man isn't homeless. He was abandoned by his own son. How could anyone do this to their father? Thank God he had legal documentation. The viral video now had over 2 million views, but instead of pity, people expressed admiration. I'd become a symbol of quiet resistance, proof that the legal system could work for regular people who prepared properly. Several news shows wanted to interview me, but I declined. This wasn't about fame or revenge. It was about dignity. Tom handled all the media requests with a simple statement. Mr. Collins is grateful for the public support and hopes his experience encourages other families to protect themselves with proper documentation. The same internet that had humiliated me in my weakest moment was now celebrating my strength. Sometimes justice comes through the courts. Sometimes it comes through public opinion. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get both. 6 months later, Nathan showed up at my door. He looked different, thinner, gray around the edges, like failure had aged him 5 years and half that time. He wasn't driving the car I'd helped him buy. That had been repossessed months earlier. "Dad, can we talk?" I let him in, but I didn't offer him coffee. "I've been thinking about what happened," Nathan began, his voice carefully modulated like he'd been practicing this speech. "I was wrong. I was scared about money, and I made terrible decisions, and I know I hurt you." He looked around the living room, taking in the changes I'd made. I'd redecorated completely, erasing every trace of his brief occupation. "I've been going to therapy, learning about family dynamics and communication. I realize now that I was taking advantage of your generosity." "You realize now?" "I want to make things right between us, Dad. I want to pay you back, apologize properly, rebuild our relationship." I listened to his entire prepared speech without interrupting.
When he finished, I stood up and walked to the window. "Nathan, do you know what forgiveness means?" "Yes. It means giving someone a second chance." "No." I turned around and looked at my son. Forgiveness means letting go of anger. It doesn't mean forgetting consequences. Some lines can't be uncrossed. "I've forgiven you, Nathan, but that doesn't mean I trust you. Trust is earned through actions, not apologies." I walked to the front door and opened it. I chose myself for the first time in my life. I'm not going backward. The court proceedings took 8 months to fully resolve, but the outcome was never in doubt. Nathan was ordered to pay the full $125,000, plus interest, plus my legal fees.
The total came to just over $140,000. Since he couldn't pay it as a lump sum, the court ordered wage garnishment. 25% of Nathan's income from any job he held would be automatically deducted and sent to me until the debt was satisfied. At his pizza delivery salary, that would take approximately 15 years. Property ownership was confirmed permanently in my name. Nathan had no legal claim to the house, no equity, no stake in anything we'd supposedly shared. The judge's final ruling was particularly satisfying. The evidence shows premeditated elder abuse and financial exploitation. Mr. Nathan Collins deliberately defrauded his father through manipulation and abandonment. This court finds his actions reprehensible and entirely without justification. Tom called me the day the final paperwork was filed. "It's over, Eddie. You won. Completely." Justice served legally and completely. But my real victory wasn't the money or the house or even Nathan's public humiliation. My real victory was simpler. For the first time in my adult life, I was living for myself. I'd spent 63 years trying to be the perfect father, the perfect provider, the perfect sacrifice. I'd given everything to a son who saw my love as weakness and my generosity as stupidity. The man who left for Ireland had died there. Someone stronger had come home. With the legal settlement money starting to come in, I did something I'd never done before. I lived for myself. I used Nathan's monthly payments to travel. Real travel, not the guilt trip manipulation I'd experienced in Dublin. I went to Italy and learned to make pasta from actual Italian grandmothers. I took a cruise through Alaska and watched whales breach in the morning sun. I bought a motorcycle, a Harley Davidson, something I'd wanted since I was 17 but never had the courage or money to buy. At 63, I finally learned what freedom felt like with the wind in my face. I started volunteering at the legal aid clinic, helping other elderly people understand their rights and protect their assets. Tom introduced me to several attorneys who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Eddie," one lawyer told me, "your case should be taught in law schools. You did everything right." The documentation, the audio evidence, the legal preparation. I learned that protecting myself protected my dignity. I developed relationships built on respect and reciprocity instead of guilt and obligation. I dated a woman named Margaret who owned her own flower shop and had her own opinions about everything. She didn't need my money or my sacrifice. She just enjoyed my company. And I enjoyed hers, without feeling responsible for her happiness. The house became my sanctuary instead of my prison. I remodeled the kitchen, planted a garden, adopted a dog from the shelter. An old beagle named Frank who followed me everywhere and expected nothing but food and belly rubs. The man who had given everything to an ungrateful son was gone. The man who remained had learned the most important lesson of his life. Your peace is worth more than anyone's convenience. I finally lived for myself, and it felt like coming home. People ask me if I regret how everything turned out, if I miss having a relationship with my son, if I wish I'd handled things differently. The answer is no. Not because I'm bitter or cold, but because I learned something that took me 63 years to understand. Real love sometimes means saying no. For decades I confused enabling with caring. I thought being a good father meant sacrificing my own needs, my own boundaries, my own dignity for my child's wants. I was wrong. I taught Nathan that love meant unlimited access to my resources, my time, my patience, no matter how badly he behaved. I taught him that family was an excuse to take without giving, to exploit without consequence. I taught him to see kindness as weakness. That wasn't love. That was dysfunction dressed up as devotion. When I finally said no, when I finally enforced consequences, when I finally chose my own well-being over his convenience, I wasn't destroying our relationship. I was offering him the first real love he'd ever received from me, Love with boundaries, love with standards, love that required respect. Nathan couldn't accept that kind of love because he'd never learned how to receive it. That's not my failure. That's his choice. The father who raised Nathan was a people pleaser who confused self-sacrifice with virtue. The man who survived Nathan's betrayal understands that self-respect is the foundation of all healthy relationships. I learned that protecting myself protected my dignity. Every monthly payment Nathan sends reminds him of the consequences of his choices. Every month I don't contact him reminds me that I chose myself. The greatest gift I ever gave my son wasn't the money he stole or the house he lost. It was the lesson that actions have consequences, even from family, especially from family. Now, I want you to think about this. If your own child abandoned you in a foreign country, what would your first move be? Write it in the comments because what I did next surprised even my lawyer. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've got family members who take advantage of your generosity, if you've been made to feel guilty for having boundaries, I want you to understand something important. Documentation is protection. Get everything in writing, every loan, every gift, every financial transaction. Sign papers, keep receipts, record conversations when you can legally do so. Most importantly, don't mistake unconditional giving for unconditional love. Real love requires respect. It requires reciprocity. It requires boundaries. Your peace is worth more than anyone's convenience, even your children's convenience. The legal system exists to protect people who prepare properly. Use it. I spent 40 years believing that being a good father meant never saying no, never protecting myself, never putting my own needs first. I was wrong. The best gift I could have given my son was the knowledge that respect is required, that love has limits, that choices have consequences. I gave him that gift 20 years too late, but I gave it to him. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the results of their decisions. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone is letting them experience the weight of their choices. And sometimes the most important person you need to rescue is yourself. The eviction notice wasn't just for Nathan. It was for every relationship in my life that no longer served me, every obligation that diminished my dignity, every connection that demanded my destruction as the price of admission. Some lessons cost $125,000, but some lessons are worth every penny. If this story taught you anything about protecting yourself legally and setting boundaries with family, hit that subscribe button and check out my next video about the time a neighbor tried to steal my property line and ended up owing me $15,000. Remember, the law protects those who prepare properly.